welcome back to another video on Gearsaw Studios, and today I'm going to be showing you how to build a dirt house, because as of the time of recording, it's April Fool's, so instead of pranking you guys, I'll prank myself by forcing myself to build a house with a very limited palette. However, before I begin, remember, please like and subscribe, and without further ado, on to the tutorial. For our palette, we're going to be using exclusively dirt-related blocks. I'd use podzol, mycelium, or grass for the roof, depends on what biome you're in. Dirt is of course the primary block. Coarse dirt can be like trim, kind of like a normal house. And then rooted dirt would work like mossy cobblestone for a foundation. The only real block that we're going to be using is mud. And even then, that's just a variant of dirt. Use a water bottle on normal dirt, you get mud. So it makes the build, significantly better, while still maintaining only dirt as the ingredient. Then, find yourself a flat area. Biome doesn't really matter, although plains would probably look best. To start off the build, we're going to be using mud 3 blocks apart from each other. Start like this, and you just space them accordingly. And once you feel like you've gone far enough in a direction, change directions. Of course, you can make protrusions and such, but whenever you have a corner, instead of just having it go up, add another one like this. It gives a little bit of depth and structure to the build, so I recommend doing it. With the mud pillars in place, we can start building the foundation itself. It's just dirt. It's a dirt house. Almost the entire build is dirt, and that makes it all very simple. All you need is dirt in between these pillars sunken in one block, and then rooted dirt intertwined. You might also want to make little flower beds, of course, filled with dead bushes to fit the color palette, rather than anything actually good looking. And if you do that, you make the build significantly better, while also keeping in the I'm running out of blocks idea. Now, we have quite a bit of a foundation going on. Rooted dirt, more dirt, podzol with dead bushes growing, and I'm starting to set up more of the framing of the build. For your little pillars, you want to make them go up 2 blocks, coarse dirt, surround that in mud, and then connect that to all these other pieces. Once they all connect together, you get some interesting designs. However, I want you to skip one side so that way we can make a non-stair staircase, because of course we don't have access to any stairs or slabs for this build. Although, I would recommend using ladders for the interior if you really don't want to jump up or down. At the same time, I don't recommend using these in survival at all. This is, just a joke, but still. The framing is now complete, and our next step is adding some way to get to this platform right here. Of course, this is just a little protrusion, and you might have not added it to your build. In that case, you can safely skip this step, excluding the staircase. But for the staircase, more dirt, because, it's a dirt house. Of course, texturing it, and then you want to use the mud to go down. Is it particularly good? Not necessarily, but at the same time, it's a dirt house. It's not necessarily meant to be the best thing. So, maybe even add a little mud blob there. And now you have a way to get in. Dirt flooring here, and then we can start doing the classical design I use for basically every build. For these walls, we want to, of course, have the floor be coarse dirt, and then the entire first ring of this wall will be more coarse dirt. The rest will be filled in with normal dirt, so going up. But in between, well, not in between, on these parts, you want to have mud going up. Gives a little bit more contrast, breaks up the walls, and honestly, mud is really just carrying this build. Thankfully, it's a variant of dirt, so it still counts. We got an actual room here, and it's mildly dirty. You could put in some paintings, perhaps some of them brown in order to reflect the environment around. But otherwise, we want to do the same thing with a second floor. But here's a neat trick. Because this is, of course, completely made out of dirt, you don't need to double layer your floors. Both floors are going to appear the same regardless, except maybe the coarse dirt ring, but otherwise, that's about it. So you can very easily just put a ladder right here or so, and then just go on with your life. So I'd recommend building another floor exactly like this. Another floor has been built up quite simply. It's literally just another floor. Nothing else to really say, except I put a dark oak table in the center of this room to make sure it's well lit, just checking at midnight. If you're building with night vision on, or always during the day, make sure to check that you have proper lighting by turning it to midnight temporarily. Otherwise, you just want to have a dirt ceiling for this room, and on the outside, depending on how true you want to stay to the dirt thing, although mud is a bit of a stretch, you might want to include some flower beds, and of course the trapdoors are not rendering, now they are. You might want to have some flower beds, of course, filled with more dead bushes. But still, it's an idea. You might want to do it for the first and second floors, or just one of them. I've added alternating flower beds to the top and bottom of the build, and put in some sweetberry bushes. The little pops of red actually make the build significantly better, and although we did use spruce trapdoors, still, it fits the build. Although, depending on your definition of dirt house, the mud is already too far, in which change it to coarse dirt, or you could actually just replace the mud with dark oak. It's really up to you what defines a dirt house, but I think this still falls in the parameters. But for our final piece, excluding the interior, we need to make a roof. Going up like this, we need to reach the middle. Make sure that your build is an odd number of blocks to make this work. You see, we go up, and now we want to go down. But first, a little bit of rounding out like this, and then we can go back down. You even get a little plus shape right here, which I think looks pretty nice. Then, the topmost block should connect in the middle and make a plus on all sides. All connected up, the next step is, of course, filling in the actual roof, which is incredibly easy. All I need to do is make layers of grass like this, going up, and if you're in a mushroom biome, in this case, I'm not entirely sure why you're building this here, use mycelium instead. If you're in a biome with podzol, then use podzol. But you can see, although very odd block choices, it actually looks decent. Like, this really should not work, but mud is genuinely a great block to build with. Even though most people think of Minecraft as, oh, I need to use bricks because it's a castle. You see how good mud is doing on a house, so perhaps use some unorthodox blocks from time to time. Occasionally, they do end up working. The green roof is now added, and we can see it's looking remarkably good for such a limited palette. Although there's various imperfections, mainly just a lack of stairs, still we got quite a bit going for us. Better yet, sweet berries everywhere are starting to pop in, and you know, that's food and a little splash of color. Now, going on the inside, there isn't really anything. Just decorate it like you would a normal house, avoiding things like carpet and keeping it all rather brown, gray, and if you need to use wood for something, use dark oak to keep that dirty vibe. You might also want to have some mud going across the ceiling like this, but that might just be personal preference. Now, looking on the interior of this build, we have our essentials. Of course, smithing table, loom, stone cutter, furnaces, whatnot. But we also have grass flooring, which it's still dirt, but it's much more interesting as it, provides a little bit more character to the build, and also if you ever need some temporary too tall plants to get dye from, what do you know, you can just place it anywhere. On the second floor, we have a campfire, some beds, and otherwise an empty room, but that's mainly because I'm running out of things to put here. And also, you could hide stuff up here, such as valuable storage, or in the basement. Although there is no basement to this build specifically, it's very easy to add one. You can just tunnel lower, very dark here, sorry mobile users, but yeah, you just add some dirt to the walls, keep the same mud design, barrel flooring, what do you know, you got storage. There's one final amendment I have to say, and that is the roof could be moss, because some people use grassy sides texture packs, which makes the sides appear green, and also, if we're allowing mud, I don't really see why not moss, although that's definitely not, a dirt block. Still, it fits the same vibe of the sand, gravel, coarse dirt, the low tier Minecrafter blocks. With this completed build, what turned from just a bad joke is now a legitimate build with an odd palette. We can see mud, moss, dirt, all the naturey blocks that typically a noob would have a lot of, but still, anybody can build this and it's not necessarily shameful to build it. In fact, it's quite decent. Of course, some places could use spruce if you really wanted to make it look good, but otherwise, it's definitely a decent build, and although it's not my first pick for a house, I'd probably go for a Tudor house design if I'm going to be honest. Still, it's a good alternative, because, well, it's incredibly cheap. All you need to do is a little bit of dirt excavation, some of that in the mangrove swamp, some of that in the lush caves, and what do you know? You have 99% of the resources for this build. Overall, would recommend if you're, trying to go for a little bit of comedic effect while keeping costs low. With that, it's the end of today's video. If you enjoyed this video, remember, please like and subscribe. It really helps me out. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your day, and if you're watching this the day it comes out, happy April Fools. Gearsaw out.